Even in a kayak, you can rig it with a sonar, just like this one, and you can fish out in the lake or river systems and have the confidence that you can catch lots of fish. Now this one is exposed. You don't even have to take it off the mount, even though it's very easy to take off. All you do is push it down when you're not using it. So this will go down like this, so it's out of the way. This particular kayak is the 15-foot model. It actually has a sonar shield because it's designed to fish in open water. A lot of people on the west coast of North America use these sometimes 3, 4, 5 miles offshore, and they have the sonar shield so they don't get a lot of salt. So look at this. There's the shield, and there's the sonar. It pops up, and if it's sunny, this is a great shade. It provides shade when you're sitting in the boat and you've got the sonar on. So these sonars also can be interchanged with the 787 models, which have an antenna, GPS, and they also take the cards that have the hydrographic charts. So what a neat way to fish. You know, if you like the idea of using a sonar, now you can even get a sonar in your fishing kayak. That way you'll catch more fish. Structure like this, like a bridge abutment, and how the fish will relate to it. It's the only structure in the middle of the river where there's a little bit of flow. You can see that little crayfish has gone up the line. Come on. Right over here. Surprised I haven't hooked like a 2-3 pounder. A lot of these fish that are about 1 pound to 1.5 pounds are in here. I know that there's larger fish in the Grand. I understand every year around the Kitchener area they have a derby, and a lot of the bass that are caught are 4 or 5 pounds. So it's just a matter of going through some of the smaller fish until you get some of the larger fish. But I'm having fun catching any of these smallmouth on this light gear. Okay, got my crayfish all set. So what I'm trying to do here, I'm anchored up and I'm trying to cast just ahead of the abutment because there's a big current break at the front. And I'm being careful. You know, when you're in a small craft like a canoe or a kayak, you should be wearing a life jacket. And even though it may not be obvious, I have mine right here. You can see this pouch that I've got. It's a government approved life preserver. And if anything were to happen, I would just take this out, put it over my head and inflate it. And it's very good to have.
Fish Girl! Adventures in your own backyard!
You know, having a net that has small mesh and that's big enough to land a fish so that it's got a pretty wide hoop and that has an expandable handle, I'm going to pull this out until it snaps into place, is a really good idea if you're fishing, especially if you're a kid and you're fishing from shore, for a couple of reasons. One, Jeremy and Jessica, using a net with a small mesh, you can actually use it to catch bait. So if you ever tried catching frogs with your hands around the water, it's pretty hard because they jump into the water. Or even some insects like grasshoppers, or even small minnows. If you have a net that has a small mesh like this, you can catch bait. But also if you get a bigger fish, where you don't want to pull the fish up onto the shore, or maybe it's a bigger fish that you can't lift up because it might break your line, it's a really good idea to have a net with a longer handle and a big enough hoop so it'll fit a 4 or 5 pound fish. So having the retractable handle is really smart. Also, for landing fish, if the shoreline is kind of muddy, by having a long handle like this, you can reach out and you don't have to get your feet wet or your shoes wet. Does that make sense to you, Jeremy? So having a net like this, it doesn't have to be big, but big enough that it can handle a larger fish, small enough mesh to even catch bait with is a really good idea.